Hey folks, it's Joe. It's that time again. Time for channel update, Patreon Q&A, that stuff. So the first thing is we're going to just get the channel update stuff out of the way. Not a ton to talk about here. Most notably, you may have noticed that there was only one produced video, one episode of the three main shows this month, and that's just because I've been working on other stuff. I actually spent a lot of time editing the Super NES draft that we did in 2011 into a video with some sort of fancy effects and 1080p video footage and all that stuff, and that took longer than I thought it would, actually. So that's one, and if you're a Patreon, like, yes, I guess I could have charged you for that, because I do charge by video, so if you're a Patreon, you only had one charge this month. I could have charged for that, but it didn't feel right, because it's not technically what you're paying for. You're paying for episodes of 5 Reasons, Obscure Games, and Same Name, Different Game, and that wasn't one of those, so I didn't charge for it. And then another thing that I'm doing, and I just actually finished shooting, and I'm going to edit around the time that I'm editing this, is a guest spot and like a sort of a little mini episode for Viridian Flashback, which is a retro Xbox show hosted by Jay, the Dolly Popka. If you've never checked his show out, you should. He was in the Ninja Gaiden episode of Same Name, Different Game. He's a really good guy, and yeah, so I'm doing that, and that's taking up some time. So between those two things, there just wasn't time to do another thing that I wanted to do, and I also wasn't super inspired. Like, there was nothing that I wanted to do this month. I was having some writer's block on like what I was going to do, if I was even going to do an Obscure Games or 5 Reasons, and what I was going to do, and blah blah blah. So I was just like, I'll just skip it this month and work on this draft video and this thing for J. Dolly Popka and all that stuff. So that's why there was only a Same Name, Different. Also, the Three Stooges Same Name, Different Game ended up being a lot longer than it was sort of like, oh, I'm going to take it easy. This is going to be like a couple years ago, and I did Crude Buster, and that was like an 11-minute or whatever video, and it didn't take very long to edit. And no, that is not how that turned out at all. The Three Stooges video took a lot longer, was a lot longer, took a lot longer to edit than I expected. But I hope you guys liked it. I usually don't edit in footage of, like, if I'm talking about a licensed thing, like when I did Friday the 13th, there was a trailer for Friday the 13th, but I didn't like edit in stuff because usually you get hit for monetization. And in fact, just that trailer for the Friday the 13th video got that one demonetized, which I don't monetize my videos anyway, but when the copyright holder does, they monetize and they put ads on stuff, which I don't like, because the fine folks who are supporting me via Patreon are paying to not have ads. And so I want to be faithful to that. But there are several Three Stooges shorts that are in the public domain, so I felt totally free to use clips from, there are 4, but I only used 3. Partially because only one has Curly in it, and the game features Curly, not Shemp, blah blah blah. So anyways, but that stuff took longer, finding spaces for that and editing that stuff in and all that. So, you know, that took longer as well. So that's why there was only one regular video. There will be 2 in December, and speaking of that, there was a poll that I put on Patreon so that people could vote what they wanted for December, if they wanted a New Year's episode, because I had an idea for a New Year's episode, but I was, again, having a little bit of writer's block. The problem is the idea I had for the New Year's episode was not... It's something that... It's a licensed thing, and I'm more interested in the license than any of the games, so that was sort of what was going on there. And so I was sort of hesitant about that, and then I was like, well, what, do people want a Christmas episode or something else? And so I put a poll out there on Patreon for people who contribute, and Christmas episode is what people voted for. So there is going to be an actual Christmas Same Name, Different Game again. There wasn't one last year. I was finishing up the Mega Man Anniversary and didn't make it a Christmas thing. There were really only a couple of actual Christmas episodes of the shows. Like, I mention it in the Jackie Chan episode. Like, I'm like, Merry Kung Fu Christmas. But like, I don't... So I acknowledge that it's December and that Christmas is happening, but the video didn't have anything to do with Christmas. And then I did some Die Hard episodes a couple of years in a row, and that's kind of it. So this is going to be another Christmas episode. There's a game that I'm pretty sure I know what game I'm going to cover, but I have been thinking about it. I just don't think that it would be... Like, I could do Die Hard Trilogy 2 or something, but that wouldn't be that interesting because all those versions are... That's not an interesting comparison because there's very little different about those. So yeah, I think I was sort of thinking about what I could do, but I think I've settled on something that should be interesting and fun and somewhat unique to talk about for the Christmas episode of Same Name Different Game. Okay, let's do Q&A. So as usual, all of this month's questions come from Joel. Thanks, Joel. Question number 1. After watching 31 Nights of Horror Games and seeing you react to knives and watches in Castlevania, what other power-ups do you despise in games? Those are some big ones. Some people hate the torch in Ghosts and Goblins. I don't. I hate the axe, actually. Ooh, the axe in Ghouls and Ghosts is a dumpster fire of a weapon. The fire power-up in NES Contra, which is a game that I love and think is pretty much a perfect game, but the fire power-up sucks. It's terrible. The rate of fire is way too slow and does that curlicue thing, and we did an NES draft, a redo of the NES draft that we did 8 years ago. That's on the channel now, and that was the first game drafted not by me, which I was a little upset about, but there was talk about the weapon selection, and Eric was saying that he thinks laser is the worst, and I was saying no, the laser is actually the second best weapon after the spread gun. Spread gun, then laser, because the laser does a ton of damage. The fire is slow, it doesn't do a lot of damage, it sucks. That weapon sucks. And the axe from Ghouls and Ghosts. And Batman for the Game Boy has some power down items. Like there's like an S, I think it's supposed to be a shotgun power up, and it only shoots like this far. It shoots like 5 widths of your character in front of you, and if you accidentally pick it up, it's like, forget it. It's a troll weapon. It has to be. There's no way they put that weapon in there thinking that it was useful to anybody. So that's one that I hate too. I think that's about it. How would you rank all the games called Akumajo Dracula in Japan? So some people don't know this, but Akumajo Dracula is Castlevania, but there were a bunch of games in its home country that were called that weren't called that here. So we got Castlevania, Super Castlevania 4, Vampire Killer, Haunted Castle, which is the arcade version, Castlevania Chronicles, and I actually think that Castlevania 64 was also Akumajo Dracula in Japan. So if I was ranking those, I would say Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania Chronicles, Haunted Castle, Castlevania 64, and I honestly can't speak to the MSX version because I've heard that it's like interesting, but I've never played the MSX version of Vampire Killer Castlevania, so I can't speak to that one. But yeah, I would say Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania Chronicles, Haunted Castle, Castlevania 64, and not included Vampire Killer. Your gaming collection, do you plan to increase the size in the future, or will it remain roughly the same over time? Any other goals in mind for it? So this is most of my collection behind me. I have about 1,500 games right now, I want to say. I'm closing in on 1,500. Yeah, it's always expanding. It's expanding just because I don't sell video games anymore, although there has been a temptation. I'm in a really small apartment right now, although actually we're hoping to move to a bigger apartment soonish, so a bigger place, maybe not an apartment, but a bigger place soonish. So I don't know that there's a reason for it to contract. It doesn't really stay the same size because I never sell anything. I don't sell anything to make room for new stuff. I just keep acquiring new stuff. But there has been an urge in some cases, like once you start getting EverDrives, like, do I need all these NES games when I have an EverDrive? No, not really. It's really slowed down my NES collecting, but then I just shift focus to something else. And do I have any goals? No, not really. Some people want to get complete sets of certain things, or whatever. I don't. That's not me. I'm not really stoked about like, oh, I got to get a complete I've thought about it. Like I've been like, oh, it would be cool to have a complete 32X collection because there's only 26 or 27 games or whatever it is. But like, why spend like $300 or $400 on the World Series baseball game just to say I have a complete, or $200 on Spider-Man Web of Fire? Like, I don't care. So the only goal is to have games that I want to play. That's it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to keep getting bigger over time, but it's just, focus has shifted. It used to be a lot of NES, like NES was my primary focus. I got an NES EverDrive. I have an NES EverDrive, a Super NES EverDrive, Genesis EverDrive. I just ordered a Game Boy EverDrive as I'm recording this, actually. So those systems kind of go to the back burner, right? Because it's like I don't need to own individual carts unless it's something that I think is just kind of cool to have. Like Nightmare on Elm Street would be a game for the NES that I would still buy because I just think that it's cool to have that object. But so no plans to no specific plans for the collection. Favorite type of stage: ice stage, sewer stage, underwater stage, shoot 'em up stage. These are common tropes across video games. Blah blah blah, that type of thing. I don't. Good stages. Those are my favorite kinds. My favorite kinds of stages are ones that are good. Yeah, I don't really like ice stages and water stages don't bother me. That's a recent thing, right? Where people like to rail on certain kinds of stages. Ice stages all suck and swimming stages are never good and whatever. And I don't really buy into that. I mean, there are a lot of swimming stages that do suck, but they don't all suck, and ice physics have their place, but it depends on how they're implemented. But none of those, it really depends on the game. There are some games where it's like, oh, that's cool. Like Super Mario 3D World has some ice stages where you can get, you can knock a Goomba out of an ice skate and ride in the ice skate. And like, I think that's really fun. But not just because it's an ice stage, just because that's something fun they did with an ice stage. Or like the stages where in Mario Galaxy, when Mario gets the ice flower and can like skate along. That's Galaxy, right? Where Mario can get the ice flower and you can like skate along like lava or water or whatever. You turn it into ice as you sort of move across it. But that's not an ice stage. That's an ice stage with a liquid if Mario has that power up. Pretty sure that's Galaxy 2, Galaxy. Maybe that's Super Mario 3D World 2. I don't remember, honestly. But, you know, those are pretty cool. But I don't really, I don't know. I'm into good stages. I love the stage in Super Mario 3 where you get the Karibo's shoe, which is probably why I like the ice skate in Super Mario 3D World. None of those theming devices make me be like, yes, I want to get to the stage that has this certain theme. A particular way about that. And that's it. That's all the questions. So if you would like to ask a question, if you give a $3 or more per episode on Patreon, you can ask me questions in this format. But I will say I'm thinking there's going to be some changes coming to the Patreon in the new year. Nothing I'm ready to commit to or really discuss, more so than just saying like I think I'm going to change some stuff. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for contributing if you're a Patreon. Thanks for just watching me ramble if you're not. And we'll see you in December. Hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, and hope you're going to have a good holiday season, but I'll be back, before Christmas. So.